Praise the Lord, everybody, and welcome to our educational seminar this afternoon. This is on Empowered Health, the Dilemma of Healthcare Disparities. This is going to be taught by our own Dr. Janine Hines and Evangelist Lysandra Beard. And so we are so happy to have them with us on today. I'm Dr. Tracy Pulliam. I'm your monitor today, and also I act as our health, over our health professionals here at the Pentecostal Church of the Apostolic Faith. So sit back and have a wonderful time.
Praise the Lord, everybody. Sister Beard here. And just before we get started, we would just like to acknowledge God with a quick word of prayer. If we can just bow our heads. Lord, in Jesus' name, we thank you for your goodness, Lord, your kindness and your mercy. Thank you for being so gracious to us and for your presence with us all this time. Lord, your people gather here to hear from you what you have put into the body related to health. We ask you, Lord, to word our tongues, Lord, let your people be edified and help us as the presenters to empower them in your word to grow thereby. We bless you for this and thank you for all things in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. So we'd like to just really get started and say welcome to everyone that has joined us on this morning. We're excited to be here. Teaching is a passion of mine, and I can get a little long-winded, but I have some notes to keep me on track here. But we'd like to thank you for joining us today. It certainly is a privilege to share what God has blessed the body of Christ with. And so as Dr. Tracy has shared with you, my name is Lysandra Beard, and I am a nurse. I've been a nurse since 2010, so about 12 years now, and I have a med-surg background, but more specifically an OB. I was a labor and delivery nurse for 8 years, and now I am a nurse leader to lead an OB department as well as pediatrics, postpartum, NICU, and lactation. I will defer over to Dr. Janine Hines to introduce herself, and then we'll get started.
So praise the Lord, I'm Dr. Hines, and welcome to our class. And we're going to be talking today about Empowered Health. I'm a family medicine physician, been practicing in Phoenix since 2013. Prior to that, I was in Chicago, and we currently are trying to promote health within our faith-based community, including one of the nonprofits that the Lord blessed me with, which is Tiny House Doc. We offer faith-based healthcare solutions to those who are underserved. And so we're happy to talk about health disparities today, and we'll get started.
All right. So thank you, Dr. Hines, and also thanks to all of our participants that are here on today. So introducing our topic, as Dr. Janine Hines has said, is Empowered Health, the Dilemma of Healthcare Disparities. When we think about disparities, it is basically being at a disadvantage related to healthcare, and usually it's a marginalized group. So it could be based on socioeconomic status, it could be on culture, where you live, and also it could, your race could be accounted for that. So the dilemma here, we will define that. But before we get started, I just want you to understand that there is psychological safety in our group on today. That's super important because there may be some topics or some conversation that you might hear that you might not feel comfortable hearing that. But we want to help you to understand that there is psychological safety. What that means is what we discuss here, it's not to bash you. It's not to make you feel bad and look bad or feel guilty about the decisions that you may have made or knowledge that you may not know of. So there may be some discomfort, but I assure you there's support here. There may also be some aha moments as we share the content in this class. And then our goal overall, Saints, thank you. Our goal overall is that we want to create an awareness and to empower us to make the necessary changes based on the knowledge that we share on today. There's a scripture that I'd like to share. It's in 1 Peter 1:3, and it says, "And as his divine power hath given unto us all things that pertains to life and godliness through the knowledge of him that has called us to glory and virtue." That's important here, and I'd like to focus on the life part, because as saints of the Most High God, we got that godliness part down. Amen. And so we want to focus on life, and the Lord is calling us to balance. And it's a blessing that our presider has this foresight, has opened up a path for us to share the life part. I understand there's some financial literacy going on. So we're focusing as the healthcare professionals on a life part for us. Amen. All right. And so our ask today is that our participants are open, and we ask that you please participate. All right. So the agenda today, I'll share that. Not too far. Here we are.
Oh,
Too much. All right, so our agenda today, we'll go over a few definitions. We'll do a little bit of an icebreaker, and then we'll review top healthcare concerns, and then we together are going to talk about some solutions and then have questions and discussion. How it's programmed or set up is about 45 minutes of a presentation. You're welcome to ask along the way or save it till we get to the part where we are interactive. So looking at the word dilemma, you can read it for yourself, but I'll say it's a situation in which a difficult choice must be made between two alternatives, and I'd say two or more, especially equally undesirable ones, and then disparity. It is a noticeable and usually significant difference or dissimilarity. So something that's not fair or does not match up. Before we go further, there are a few more words that I would like to define. Is health, right? A lot of times we use health and we see someone that may be grossly overweight or sick and in a hospital, but health really by definition is the absence of illness or disease. And so many of us might find ourselves in a place where we are not living or having health. And then we shared health disparities before. So the icebreaker, and here's your time to participate, those that are online as well as those that are in the room, is if you have a piece of paper and or feel comfortable unmuting yourself, if you have that functionality or those in the room, to please help us understand what are your healthcare concerns or questions? What are barriers to starting or maintaining a consistent healthy choices? And also, if you look at that picture to the left here, what does this picture represent to you? Anybody in the room have any questions or concerns that they would like to bring forward? And it may not be particular to you. It may be a situation that you have a concern about or question about that we are happy to address for you.
I think one of the biggest healthcare concerns even now is what's going to happen with COVID. That's a concern, a concern here, a concern in the community. Even to me as a healthcare provider, what's going to happen with COVID?
Okay. Very good. So we'll collect those questions as a Q&A, that something can come forward a little later. So what's going to happen with COVID? Because there has not been an announcement, Dr. Tracy, that the pandemic is over. So we're definitely still in a pandemic. What other questions or healthcare concerns do we have?
Well, I guess the disparity as individuals going to the hospital and as you said, dissimilar. The care that they're going to get from one room to the next, even in an ICU unit. Will they get the same care, attentiveness, and even medication as the next person? So that's a concern.
That's hugely concerning. And I know that hospitals and, in this generation of that, we're calling ourselves woke, and we're aware of systemic racism. We're aware of, if you don't advocate for yourself or have health literacy, that you may not be able to advocate or be an informed consumer, so that you would be able to get the further testing and therefore the treatment and hopefully the healing that you're looking for. So that definitely is a concern. And I know enshrouded in this is diversity, equity, and inclusion. So having that knowledge about those programs or those initiatives to bring forward the fact that yes, there is a disparity in healthcare, and it definitely is a dilemma that providers are spending more time or less time with others, offering services to different people based on if they're insured or not, and the breadth or the depth of their issues that they present with. It's very concerning in these days and times. Dr. Hines?
Oh, yeah, I would say, to that end, I would say, and maybe this is something the health team can do, get an advocate. Maybe we can start an advocacy program, because while I may not be licensed to practice in North Carolina or Alabama, I have general medical education. And if you reach out, maybe we have a Google form or a platform where people can ask questions or reach out to the healthcare team. But if you reach out to a medical professional within the PCAFI, that's what we're trying to do, is become more available to you. And I'm in Arizona, but you have an appointment tomorrow in Alabama, and you want to know, what is my routine checkup, and I'm 55, and what should I ask? So those things might be helpful too, to have an advocate, just a health advocate. And if you're able to take somebody along with you, it's probably a good idea. They may not be medically inclined, but you got another ear. They may hear something that you didn't hear, or they may have a question that you didn't ask. So maybe as a group, we can start, I don't even know how to do that. Like, you can go online or maybe even an app and just ask general questions of the medical healthcare professionals.
Kind of like WebMD, when we have our own.
We can be like our own WebMD, but even more so, you get a direct answer from one of us, a health professional. Oh, okay, you got it. Or, I just got my number, and what does this mean? So, because a lot of the primary cares are given a lot of, everything was normal skills next year, but you might have seen something that you don't understand. So maybe if there's an app where we can field questions, be your advocates and be your resources. And you may not be able to make it to my office, or I can't practice medicine where you are, but I can always advise you.
Absolutely.
And advocate for you.
That's really good. Are there any other thoughts, questions, or concerns?
Medications. So for a lot has changed. So people are coming in with something that's emotional distress, and so now, of course, and I could give you the opioids and so forth. They have these other medications now. One of them for pain that I had after a car accident. So they gave me a medication. Should I say what it is?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, so now I forgot what you said. But I can't remember, but as soon as I remember, I'll just kind of remember. But it caused my blood pressure to blood pressure problem, caused my blood pressure to skyrocket to 216 over 146. What was it?
It was tramadol.
No.
You could have had an instead too.
I'll think of it, but I was just talking to someone about it today. So I stopped taking them because my blood pressure, and I was getting dizzy, headaches. And then my sister, they put her on it too. She would take it, it caused her aorta to start splitting.
So it could have been acid, because you get a lot of cardiovascular.
Yeah.
So
you had some kind of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory agent.
Yeah, so I would say, even to that end, again, if we could come up with some of these tech geniuses can help us come up with an app that we can utilize in the PCAF, that would be a very good question to field over to us. We have pharmacists, we may have had similar experiences, but to answer your question, I would just say, there's a side effect profile to every medication. Some of us have more of a tendency to get those side effects, and especially if there's a genetic predisposition. So for you to have the same or a similar side effect as your sister, you might want to share your health information amongst your family, because you might have a genetic predisposition to get these side effects.
So can I add this to make a bigger twist? As a chaplain, I had to look at the records of my patients, the medications they're taking. And I noticed there was only one specific
Okay, interesting. Yeah. It's unfortunate. I actually read a case about a physician who was African American in the hospital with COVID when it was really bad. And one of her chief complaints was pain. But because she was Black, and she was asking for certain medication, but she knew what to ask for, because this is muscle pain, so I need this, and she knew what her pain scale was, but they saw her as drug seeking because she was Black. So they wouldn't give her what she needed to control her pain. So there is that, and that's that part of disparities that we're talking about. You're just not treated the same. Some medications also are, well, we should also know that there's certain medications we should never even take, or we should at least question.
Right.
Black people who have blood pressure issues should probably, in my opinion, never be on an ACE. Are you?
It is. You can take an ARP.
I agree,
but
not
not an ACE inhibitor.
So ACE inhibitors with lisinopril, enalapril, with nasopril, any of those that end with pril are very commonly known to cause angioedema. So it's facial swelling, lip swelling, tongue swelling, particularly in Black people. So when I get a new patient and we do a med review and I see that on your list, we changing it right away. So it's just certain things that, again, you wouldn't know, but of course, if we had an app where you could schedule an appointment to talk to our pharmacist or do a med review or whatever, I think it would be very beneficial to all of us as a body.
And disparities, they happen. I'll give you a primary example. I was pregnant with my second child, and I was young, but I was still in residency, right? I went because I had some postpartum issues where actually I was having a hematoma. It was very difficult birth. So I actually had a intra-abdominal hematoma that had become infected. So I was having this horrible pain. And then, and I remember going back to the hospital, you know, I wasn't looking my best. I wasn't in a white coat. I didn't have a stethoscope around my neck. I was a female in a lot of pain. My husband had gone around to park the car. He brought me in a wheelchair, and I heard them clearly say, "There's just some Black girl that's had one too many babies, and she's out there wanting more pain medicine." That was at the hospital, one of the hospitals that I was a resident at. So understand disparities happen to us all, and we have to be mindful of that so that we can break those patterns of behavior and not just get mad about it, not just talk about it, but really bring to attention that, hey, wait a minute, that's unfair behavior. I heard them say that. And then, you know, I was like, I mean, I was in too much pain to reach up and do what I really want to do and tell Jesus, sit down, like, I guess when me and the devil gonna take care of it. I didn't even do that. I was in too much pain. But it happens. It happens.
Not sure.
Oh, I'm sorry, did it move?
It went to sleep.
It went back.
I think I typed it by mistake, I'm sorry.
No,
But her is your thing.
I don't think my
I think you have to get closer to it. Dr. Bryant had that problem.
It's not advancing?
It is
No,
not.
it's not.
All right, let me do a tap one more time. I think I was letting people in the room, I think I tapped it by mistake. I try not to listen.
Yes, thank you. All right, so I'd like to share stories. So in labor and delivery, I got a lot of heat for it, but the primary population that we serviced were African Americans, and we were downtown Milwaukee, and the nurses, and I was the minority in the room as a team member, and it hurt my heart to hear words like, "Oh, that's their pimp," talking about the father of the baby. Or I heard more times than I cared to hear how slow or crazy African Americans were. Or they don't understand anyway, so I won't take the time to explain. So I highlight these kind of things to say, you know, the disparities and the dilemmas that we are in. It's good to have these kind of discussions to bring awareness that this kind of stuff is happening and for us to break that mold of what is going on, because we are a people, right? We are people that are knowledgeable, and our pain is what it is. And if we don't know, inform us, because we have the capacity to learn. And I'm thankful. I'm so thankful for the representation of the medicine that we had at this conference. We have psychologists that's here, psychiatrists, you know, medical doctor, you know, you have this nursing perspective, you have NP, family medicine, all of that that's here, PAs that are here. And so, yes, look at all of this. And so I hope that this kind of conversation will cause a frustration that the preacher spoke about the other day, to cause us to move to do something, because we should not be subjected to what we've been subjected to for so long. And this goes years back from slavery, and we're still living what our ancestors have experienced. And so, we want to empower our voices to say, you have this knowledge, tap into it. Nothing's too shameful. Sometimes I can talk a lot, especially being a labor and delivery nurse, seen it all, right? So I can talk about it all very easily. And so what that means is I hope that we can create an arena where the saints are welcome to bring their concerns. And Dr. Hines is always so teaching, and she's so talented and solution-based, right? Get an app, let us know. Because it comes from us. I just told her, I was like, I need to get off the center grill. So I'm being very, very, very open to help us to understand there's an issue going on that we must address, and we can't lay down. We just need to stop laying down and taking it. But why are we taking it? Probably because we don't know. Probably because we're afraid. Probably because we don't want someone to know I too have a health condition. And it's not that the devil's attacking me. These frail bodies break down, and God has empowered the body of Christ with knowledge, has given grace and blessing to have this kind of knowledge among us. And so we don't have to lay and be subject to an early or untimely death, or not living to our fullest potential while we're here. And the Lord has created us to do his work with full body and strong tenacity to go forward. As we're in these mountains, I told my daughter, I was like, wow, Moses had to climb a mountain. As we look at how majestic and huge these are, he had to climb the mountain. I can imagine it was arid or hot like this. And then when he didn't do what God said hew out a stone and come right back up. My God. And he had to have been in shape to do it. That's what I'm trying to say, right? And so the preaching, are we preaching as full as we can? Are we prophesying and doing and testifying and even praising God to our full? And he said, I want your all. That's what he said. He said, I want your all. Are we doing that? And I think we'll find ourselves saying no. And this is not a guilt trip, but it's an awareness. And God has equipped us and has given us all things that pertains to life and godliness, all right? And so this awareness here is to empower you to do something about it for yourself, but also further than yourself, because it is a system. It's a system thing.
What's interesting is, do you think, and to the panelists, the question that I have is, I've always said that the Lord is technologically and dispensationally sound, but some of our barriers to healthcare within our faith-based system, is it because sometimes there were so many barriers? Is it that because the systemic barriers were there to keep us from, being able to get to healthcare, then we depended solely on the Lord. But now, the Lord works in a lot of different ways, right? So he uses people, but are we still, are the barriers, are they still there that make it harder for us as faith-based people to extend ourselves? Does that make sense, what I'm asking?
Yes, I would say there aren't, as, can you still see us, Brother Leslie, can you still see us when we sit down? Are we
Yes,
visible?
yes.
Okay, so I would say a lot of doors have opened,
Mhm.
but the mentality hasn't shifted. So you might have been a herd of cattle behind these fences for years, and we finally tore down the fences, but you remember being a herd, so I gotta stick to my herd kind of mentality, right? So you can be free, but not know it, right? So, but the other part I feel like is there is still a barrier of stigma.
Right.
There's still a barrier of stigma. There is sometimes a barrier of, you said tech savvy, so some people aren't,
Right.
where I know where to go to look for or which article to pull, or some people don't. And then I think there is a barrier within the faith-based community that says to us, you can't have faith and take blood pressure pills. And I don't agree with that. So what I tell my faith-based community and my clinics is, okay, now that we have a name for it, let's pray about it You do your part so God can heal you. But in the meantime, I don't need you stroking out because your blood pressure is 180 overnight.
Could you say that again, Dr. Hines? Say it one more time, Dr. Hines, 'cause I said, you said it so nice. You said it nicer than I said, Dr. Hines. So could you give it to us again? I love that how you said it.
Yeah.
That's no stigma. Oh my.
Well,
No
so
stigma.
let's be biblical.
Give it to us.
Jesus had Luke.
Right.
Physician.
Say it.
Why
Would he have
would he have
a?
a physician
Mm.
if it's not necessary
Right.
in the body for them to have their expertise?
Right.
He had tax consultants, he had lawyers, so why is it okay for us to consult people in all these other areas of life,
But not.
but not in our mental health and physical health, behavior? Like, why is that okay, but this is not? So I'll say it again. We got a name for it. God gave us scientists, God gave us to study enough to help you figure out that you have high blood pressure. That's why you have daily headaches. So now that we know the name for it, we're going to take it to Jesus and we're going to instruct you on what you can do to get well. But in the meantime, while you're going through your process of healing, I don't need you stroking out. So go ahead and take this blood pressure pill until the Lord heals you. And sometimes your healing can come through medicine. We had this whole debate for 2.5 years. Lord, save us from COVID, deliver us. Okay, then we get then he blesses somebody to come up with a vaccine. Well, that ain't God. But then so what are we praying for when he makes provision and we're not going to accept it?
Right.
Talking good.
Right?
Right.
So he's given us, she started with the scripture, all things that pertain to life and godliness. And we're not living our best life because we're not taking advantage of the all things.
My God, that's good.
And she full of the Holy Ghost, just like I say I am. I'm just saying we have to. I'm just saying. I love it because that message has to be clear. The barriers sometimes are barriers that we create because we're not willing to understand the scripture as faith-based people, and we suffer, and there is no need. And that's really the message. That's so clear. The barriers are there. The systemic barriers are there. But guess what? God provides us everything that we need. He is so marvelous to do that. I mean, and I love it. Right? Until he does. And sometimes it's like Paul, there was a thorn in his side and he just didn't remove it. So some stuff, right, you know what? You just don't have to deal with it.
It's great.
And sometimes it's dealing with is he works through people. I love it.
Wow, that's really good. So the barriers, right? We're talking about those barriers. And I do think our forefathers in the thought of pleasing God and completely depending on God has created a barrier and therefore it fit their understanding for the time. And as Dr. Tracy has said that there's a dispensation, there's times.
Yes.
There's times, and there was a time some of it wasn't available and God made the way and he still performs miracles. And at this day in time, he's working through his vessels that he has given that knowledge to. And to piggyback off Dr. Hines, the Lord, we say rather that, you believe God, and still take your blood pressure medicine, because the saints really don't contest blood pressure medicine. They don't contest diabetes medicine. But a lot of times they will have a hard time with mental health. And I know we had a class on that before, but we oversimplify and we go to a default to say this is demonic. Mental health is demonic when really it is a chemical imbalance, when really it is a trauma response to something that may have occurred in our lives. And so to sit and to be open, that's what the Lord told the man whose ears was plugged. He says, be open to hear what God has said, this body that he made. Be open to the healing that is in nature. And believe it or not, many of our medicines, Dr. Hines, Dr. Pulliam, correct me if I'm wrong, many of our medicines are made from herbs in the earth and trees and weeds and all that. So it's just in pill form.
Permission to talk about that.
Yeah, weed. Oh, no, I didn't mean weed. Lord God, no, not like that. No. But hey, there's medicinal weed, right? But anyway, but what I'm saying is our medicines are made from nature.
So let me ask you a question then. So now I know that you can't eat enough certain things in order to get the effect that you would off of certain medications. But I do also want to consider, or help me with this, as physicians, scientists, all of that good stuff. The number of medications that you take can affect your health.
I definitely agree.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So, how do you look at the limitations, and if something has to be trimmed back, because there's
Well,
17 medications, and that's dangerous, and then if you have to trim some off, how far down do you trim it?
so,
And where do you
yeah, so I would say, less is more, right? So if I can solve the same problem or treat the same symptom with fewer medications, it's gonna be better for you in the long run, right? I would also say every medication has to be metabolized, right? So during that process of metabolism, you're gonna get off products, byproducts that cause side effects, right? And also, that process of metabolism requires strong kidneys, strong liver, you know what I'm saying?
So metabolize for the audience is that your body has to process.
Has to process the medication, break it down, take out the active ingredient, put it where it's supposed to be, and eliminate what's not active, right? And so to answer your question, for instance, I have a lot of patients that are irritated with me because if you're on any kind of medication, most medications, I would say, you have to have an annual physical, and then you have to have a 6-month checkup. That's irrespective of what your insurance paid for. Because we're gonna do a medication review, and we're gonna make sure that you still need all those meds, and that none of them are causing problems. I have a niece that was taking medications that's prescribed, completely destroyed her liver. Seizure medication, destroyed. She was in a hepatic coma and had to get a liver transplant. And if God had not stepped in when he did to provide the liver, she would be gone. So when I tell these stories to my patients, I'm not being mean. I need to check your liver every 6 months. Come see me. So when I say to you, less is more, I religiously review medication lists. I make sure that you haven't had a hospitalization in between since the last time I saw you, and somebody duplicated on the water pill and didn't realize I already had you on this. I make sure to do those things because there is some danger in not having proper monitoring and surveillance.
Okay, so, and even in that, Dr. Hines, even in that, if the physician, say you went to the ER or you went to urgent care, whatever, and they gave you a medication, but there is in the system, it will track it. And so even if the doctor doesn't know, so you're telling me that they could possibly over-medicate you and if they just don't use it?
And all honesty, and I'm not gonna use names for my niece, I believe she has a case because the 2 seizure meds that they gave her, they interact.
Right.
So maybe one day she had a seizure, ended up in the ER, and they said, well, this one ain't working, so we're gonna give you this. But when you went home, you took both of them, and nobody's watching. Right? So I would say this now, so that for my patients, that warrants a 3rd, maybe 4th, 5th visit. I need to see you at least 2 days after you got out of the ER, because I need to know. I need to know what they gave you, and I need you to know whether or not you could continue this, or if it was just short term because it was an antibiotic, or if it. So now that's more than that interferes with our every 6 months. But listen, if you want me to practice my best medicine, come see me every time you go to urgent care. I need to know what's going on because those records don't automatically change.
But remember, usually urgent care emergency room, only because as a hospitalist, I know what I say when I leave. Guess what they say? The magic word that says, follow up with your primary care. You have to do it. You have to do it. So once you leave an emergency room, once you leave urgent care, they usually say some magic words because remember, they're not your primary care. So most of the time they want to say, tag, let somebody else who know
they don't want the liability.
They don't want the liability. So they're gonna always, in 98% of cases, say, follow up with your primary care. There's a reason for that because what they're telling you is, I don't know you just came to me for this one thing. So you need to be careful. Let them know what you are. Let them know what I did because it does not automatically transfer over. So as a barrier, you have to partner to sometimes your job is to partner with your physician because we don't know. We don't know that you've been to 12 urgent cares. We don't know that you've been to the emergency room. we don't always know. As a hospitalist, I took the extra step. Let me call your primary care doctor. Let me make sure that I send them a discharge summary for those that have one.
Right.
But your primary care may not know, because guess whose responsibility it is to partner with them to let them know? Yours. Because they don't always automatically know that you went to urgent care. And urgent care doesn't know that you have a primary care all the time who is, hey, I told you don't take that, remember?
So all they're doing is giving you based on what what they see examine you.
What
They
your
don't have your record or any
Exactly.
other information.
They are
So they're
going
based
by,
on
they are going
you're
by what
saying.
you saying as an acute, urgent, or emergent problem.
Yeah.
Now remember that. That's very key. It is an emergent problem or an urgent problem that you have decided to see somebody else for because your doctor is not necessarily available.
Or you're
That's a
out of
great
town,
service.
or you, if you
Yes,
get sick here.
They're just not available
When you
for
get
whatever
back
reason.
home,
But
you
that's
go
a
to
great service. But what they're saying to you is, I'm just providing you an acute fix
Yeah.
for what you say is the problem right now. That's why they don't give you
They don't
30
give
days of medicine. Most
Yeah.
of them don't. They give you a week of something. And then the key is, go back to your primary care. I don't know nothing about you. But you came to me for an acute problem. That's why when you go to urgent care and you start trying to talk about everything else that's going on with you, they
Exactly.
say, whoa,
What brought
you
you
give
this
me
today?
one problem.
Yeah.
And then you may get upset and say, wait a minute, but I got, no, don't you be telling me all of that. One.
The one that made you come today.
Yes. So that's a key point as well, because there is a reason why, we're talking about empowered health.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. And what empowers you is the ability to partner with your providers and take ownership of your health. Part of taking ownership is to say, I had to go to such and such now. Let me go back to Dr. Hines. Now I know. It's like the Bible now. I know you. I don't really know y'all. Right. Just saying, I'm still in the book, right? I ain't no evangelist. They're evangelists, so they'll give you scripture. But I believe somewhere in the Bible it said, then we don't know. But hey, I know you.
Yeah.
So you have to remember that, because we're talking about empowering yourself to live the best life that you have. And that's how you empower yourself.
See, that's one of the dangers too, because if there is something in a medication that you had before, I don't know, whatever they may, there may be one of the elements in your ingredients in that medication that your body doesn't respond to well. The manufacturer may have a reaction.
No.
And they don't know anything about
They
it.
don't.
They give you something
Yeah.
and they're not writing the prescription.
Right.
So they're probably, I don't know. Do
They give
write
you a
prescription?
small amount.
Okay, they give you an amount to
Yeah.
take,
And
so
short
you're not
period of
going through a system to get that name and all that information. So now,
Yeah.
you've been given almost a lethal.
Well, you should, every physician as part of your training, you should be mindful of the best practices, right? So there's just certain things. If you come to me with a urinary tract infection and you pregnant, I'm not gonna give you macrolide. It's like certain things. So every physician should know common best practices, but they don't know your particular case. So if you're on meds, you probably should just carry your list with you. And if you have an allergy, you should have that on your list.
You should know.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing, here's the disparity. So if you
Yeah.
don't know,
Yeah.
then there's a problem.
That's
So,
it.
and
That's it.
as the physician, as you
That's
said, best practices say that particular individual should be looking these things over and considering all these different factors too. As opposed to, well, this should do it, just write it off and give it, and not being careful with that individual to
Right.
query them
Yeah.
to get the information that might
Yeah.
prevent.
And most physicians do, because remember, we take an oath of.
Now, that's
you
you,
know.
not urgent care that don't know you.
Well, but the thing about it is what you should always do, for my patients, I always tell, or my family members, always know what you're allergic to and always carry a list of your medications. Because we are trained very, our training is very, it's the same. I practice just like Dr. Hines, her medical school, it's the same, but we're talking about empowering yourself. So empowering means knowing your physical, your health, your past medical history, knowing your medications, knowing what you're allergic to, knowing that if I went to Dr. Hines, she put me on lisinopril made me cough and sweat.
Yeah.
So
That's an allergy, because she gonna tell you don't take it. Don't go to the emergency room and say, right, you just have to tell them, because you can't say, And right, you can't say, well, it's that medicine that start with an
And so these are the things that,
Yes.
that those, that the
And
viewers.
this is what we're
and
trying to
those
bring
of
to
us
the body.
We're trying to get them
Yes.
to understand, it's important for you to have this, it's important for you.
Well,
to know.
people perish for lack of knowledge.
And that's why we want them to know.
Empowered.
That information, because that's what they ask you.
What we're talking about is empowering yourself. And empowering yourself just means, I know what I'm allergic to. You can't be giving me no,
Right.
don't give me no, I broke out into a rash and passed out with that one. I can't take that. And nobody's gonna argue with you. I mean, especially in urgent care, you tell them, okay, all right, next, because I don't want that responsibility as well. But remember what we're talking about today. We're talking about the ability to empower yourself. And empowering yourself is being able to have some of these tools so that you can live your best, safe,
And
full of the
let me
Holy
say
Ghost
this
life.
too, people need to, you actually do need to have somebody with you, because sometimes they just take whatever the physician says, and they don't ask questions, and they don't, bring up certain information that they may need before they start to treat them or give them treatment. So you need to have somebody with you, because,
Absolutely.
I mean, my husband will come, we talked about it, he'll come home with the doctor saying, well, you just know. And then, well, what about the medication? I got nothing on that shit. What's your blood pressure? Oh,
It was okay.
you need somebody with you that's gonna ask questions if you don't know to ask them.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So we can really get stuck, couldn't we?
No, and so, no, I think this is good. Right, and so look at this. So what does this picture represent?
This is what you don't say for us.
Yeah.
What you don't know.
The underlying issues.
Underlying issues. Yes, ma'am. Just what we see.
Right.
We may not know what's all going on.
Right.
Isn't that powerful?
Yeah, it is. That was exactly what I thought.
Poetically still, this topic and the breaking of mindsets and former barriers, right, that hurt, the gate is gone. We've busted this wide open. We cannot delve into the depth of what's going to be said today. But we're gonna touch this tip here, the iceberg.
Yeah.
There's more to come. And it sounds like there's a hunger that's there to say, you know what, did you do that, Philip?
I think so.
I do have concerns, and it's important to me to understand. Now, I know my doctor, if I can just again share myself, has shared, follow up with me, and I do, but I didn't really realize that partnership and how she's caring for me to ask for me to come back. And that it is empowering. And so I just would like to leave that with the group that's gathering and those that will see this later is, like Dr. Tracy said, it's something you have to do. Iyanla said it, right? Now you do the work. It's super important that you follow with that provider, even after hospitalization or an acute, I had something going, give them a call, even a nurse will take a call, you may not see the doctor, and they will communicate and follow up as necessary. And then the other piece, I'm forgetting my thought here, so I will move on. But let's move on to the next portion here. So we talk about dilemma. Do we see a dilemma here?
My God.
Yes.
You even got the tech person.
Right? So left versus right. And they said, I understand in some communities said that food be thy medicine.
My God.
Right? And what we ingest largely can be healing and fix problems. We do have chronic issues because we have grown up on a Western or a standard American diet, right? Standard American diet, SAD. And it keeps us in a sad situation. It's good, it's convenient, it's quick, and it's cheaper, usually.
Yes.
And it's more tasty and it's comforting.
Right?
It rocks you straight to sleep.
Yes, and it's good in your pocket, right? And then the other side, itis, that's a disparity. Itis is a disparity.
And I can feel the barrier.
The barrier, yes. And so, broccoli, while it's good for you, it's not always appealing. And it's appealing when it's cooked a little more than done with some cheese, right? And some butter, right? So we can make it jump over there. But I just thought this was so powerful when I looked up this. I certainly didn't make it up, but it's vibrant and it gives life, and this, on the right side can replace a multivitamin.
Yes, so maybe we can even have, a diet. Do we have a dietitian?
No.
We do.
We do have a sister plan.
So maybe we can even have, a diet-based program, because my concern is the dilemma is also associated with disparity. There are food disparities in our community.
Yes, it
You
is.
can't get fresh fruits and vegetables at the same price that you can, you know what I'm saying? So sometimes how do you educate people within their limitations? Hey, doc, this is all I can afford. Okay, well, let me work with you. Let's do a consultation. That's what you got in your on your shelf. Yeah, let's work with you.
I love that.
Don't add butter. Don't fry it. Bake it. Grill it. Like I can't control what you have access to. Right. Use herbs. Don't add salt. So there may have to be consultations within the limitations of the people, as it relates to food choices as well.
I love that. And to go further, there are food deserts in communities. And what that means is, and that's a new creative way to put that, but basically in certain communities, there is no fresh fruit available. There are no stores that gives the variety.
And try going to a fast food place that offers salads, like fresh salads now. They're not in our community.
Yes, yeah, for sure. So with what Dr. Hines is saying, we understand that there may be some socioeconomic disadvantage to us. And then with that though, like she said, what can we do in the confines of what you do have? So what we're saying here is all bad, all good. That's not the comparison we're making. We're saying what modifications can we make to head toward health? All right. So it took a while to get there. It's what's familiar to us, but what can we start to do to make the changes? Dr. Prulia?
Okay, so I'm not gonna take this over, but you know what we did at our church one time? We did something called recipe rehab. It was the most fun thing to do because I was trying to bring in, we're used to doing certain things in church, right? We used to frying that chicken. My people were like, you better get, almond milk, that's for, I don't want that. Ground turkey, you better get on out of here with that, Sister Queen. I don't know where you bringing that foreign mess in here. I don't want it. So what we did, we had and I'm a foodie, you can tell, I'm a foodie, right? But we had recipe rehab at our church. So we had, how you have a taste of the church, we had a taste of the church, but then we did recipe rehab where everybody brought a dish as a family, and what you did was lighten the dish up, whatever your favorite dish is. So it is a good way to introduce something healthy. So I just said, hey, if you want spaghetti, how about doing this? Make the spaghetti, use ground turkey, and instead of using regular pasta, try one of the plant-based pastas. My son at that time was becoming plant-based only. I'm from Mississippi. It killed me. That boy wanted to give up meat and give up the whole, oh Jesus. It almost killed me. It killed me almost, Lord. But my family had to learn to do, because he was only 13 at the time. So he's headed to a growth spurt. And I can't say, okay, we're gonna have chicken and broccoli. Okay, you just gonna eat broccoli. No. So I had to learn how to do it. So in my church, we did a recipe rehab. And for the people, I didn't say you had to be plant-based, but what it did was take whatever your recipe is, your favorite one, and figure one way to make it less. So whether or not that was you using whole fat milk and you want to turn it into a skim milk, and let's just see what it tastes like, right? So instead of using the sugar, let's try let's try brown sugar. Or even my favorite is Swerve. I love Swerve now. Let's try, I had a little station where I made smoothies with almond milk and frozen bananas. They thought I had put all the sweetener in it. I had not put not one thing sweet in there other than those really ripe bananas that I froze. So we did a recipe rehab at my church. And then we voted at the end. And then you had to, make a little card about how you unfatten or you healthify.
Healthify.
I made a new word, healthify. helpify the recipe. So that's what we did at my church, as a fun way to introduce new things, with a little bit of a twist, but one step at a time. I mean, and I think that was, so doing things like that may be interesting and helpful. But we did recipe rehab, and it was so much fun because most people say, well, I didn't know almond milk tasted like this, or I didn't know that I could do this instead of a whole milkshake. So I did a whole thing, put peanut butter in it, and it was really eye-opening, because even if you took, let's your greens, I'm from Mississippi, we in Alabama, so we like stuff swimming at the top of our greens. All right, so instead of doing that, just take all the meat out, and let's see what happens when you use, onions and fresh herbs, and just, you know what I'm saying? Don't make it a lot of pork fat and a little bit of greens. Make it more greens, and see what happens. So it was a great idea, but I love that slide, and I love what you said, Evangelist.
God bless you. No, that's really good. I'm going to take that back for us, like a recipe rehab. That's really good. Because we're not saying you have to take away this here, but it's the moderation. Let your moderation be made known to all men. And also scripture says be temperate in all things, right? Anyone that strives for the mastery is temperate in all things. And so, yes, it's okay to have a burger at times, but what is the rest of your week going to do? How are we going to balance that? So it's, again, that psychological safety. We're not asking someone to make a complete switch, but understand that it can't be all this and certainly not all that. Okay. So I just want to talk a little bit about obesity in America. And, it is a disorder involving excessive body fat that increases the risk for health problems. And, just given the diet that was on the left of the slide before, it shows, or it contributes to that. So it's really taking in more calories than you were burning off. So it is common, serious, and costly. And it leads to conditions such as heart disease or cardiovascular disease, things that are like your high blood pressure, irregular heartbeat, irregular rhythms, and high cholesterol. And also it can weaken or enlarge your heart vessels or overall your heart. It can lead to stroke and type 2 diabetes. There's a difference between type 1 and type 2, but type 2 is a disease of lifestyle. And then obesity can lead to some cancers. These are some of the leading causes of, and I want to focus on preventable deaths, disabilities, and infirmities. And so you see the foreshadow here of all of that vibrancy. We can really enjoy the fruits and the grains and the meat and all of that. It's just being open to embracing a different way of eating, because we're going to eat. But what is a different way, and just being open to trying new things, because God's earth is full of so many different things than us limiting ourselves. Before I go on, Dr. Hines, would you like to say anything on this?
No, I'll hit heart disease and stroke and diabetes a little bit more. But that picture reminds me of something I did with I gotta get back on my veteran challenge. But the Mediterranean diet, I believe, is the best. I won't call it a diet. It's the best lifestyle modification if you can transition to that. And that picture reminds me of, it's mostly seafood based, but also lean meats, chicken, turkey, but a lot of fruits and veggies and grains. And that usually works for any of these conditions. You don't see a whole lot of carbs, so I just wanted to make that connection. What that picture looks like is really what we should try to gravitate towards, because that mitigates a lot of the conditions you have listed.
Awesome. And I just want to share, eating better will, help you get better sleep. It's better stress management or lessen stress. Your skin looks great. There's an increased energy that you have from eating from the earth in this way in your leaner meats.
Can I just add something?
I do have a question about eating. So so some of the fruits are high in sugar. So how do you balance that out?
Yeah, that's a really good question. If you have diabetes, you want to be mindful of the high sugar ones. You might want to do more citrusy things, but it all depends on the individual person. But in general, this is going to be way healthier than you picking up a Twix, right? But that's a good question.
But on to that, there are some that have higher and lower glycemic index. That's what you're trying to do. So when you're talking about fruit, there are two things that help. One is the fiber in fruits that help. So, so that's also helpful is the fiber, but even more so is lean toward fruits that have lower glycemic index. So that's gonna be your blueberries, blackberries, strawberries. Those are the things that you can usually take in without much of a problem with increasing your glycemic index. So when you have things like watermelon, bananas, oranges, they really will dip you straight up there. Now, remember, grapefruit is up there for those people who are on certain medications. You do have to be careful with grapefruit and its ability to metabolize food. So you have to be careful with that. But when you're talking about fruits, they're healthy, but not necessarily with the carbs. So you stick toward the blueberries, blackberries, and strawberries, raspberries. I don't like raspberries, but
What
yeah,
about
raspberries.
grapes and cherries?
They raise you straight through the roof. They're good. Now they're good, but
If you have a sugar problem.
Yeah, in
if you
terms
have
of
a sugar
sugar.
problem,
Yeah.
they will be a problem, there will be an issue. So if you're diabetic, but I will say this, if there is a preference or a choice, I'd rather you have that than to have a bunch of bread, pasta, and rice.
Exactly, because once again, it's about the fiber and taking the whole fruit. So if you're talking about simple sugars, the fruit sugars are clearly going to be better than simple sugars. So the Twix, the Snickers, the M&Ms, way better to grab the grapes and the cherries.
Right.
Cherries also have a great antioxidant.
Yeah,
So for people who have problems with
Gout.
gout and
Yeah.
people with any kind of arthritic conditions, the cherry is really optimal.
But what people don't realize, especially diabetics, is everything that you eat that's white is basically turning into white sugar in your body, whether it's sweet or not. And somebody said, "Oh, I didn't have that donut, I didn't." But she had a big old bowl of spaghetti, right, or rice. So what they don't realize is that all that white processed food is gonna be way worse than this colorful plate here.
Sorry, let me just add something in here, because I love greens. I absolutely do love greens. And I love tomatoes. Okay, I love tomatoes on my greens. With some onions. Now, my mother suffered with hypertension. She had, she was diabetic, and then she also had congestive heart failure. So she loved greens, tomatoes, and all that too. So you would think that that was healthy and that was good, grab that. The potassium was an issue and drove her levels up. And that was something we didn't learn until she had had a few episodes.
I would actually say, and Dr. Tracy, you can
Let
pitch
me just
in.
add this
Okay.
forward, because the one thing that I did learn, I want you to help me, because people may not know.
Right.
I would wait until the day before she was going to have dialysis.
That's what was.
And let her have it.
It's
But I would
yeah.
soak it,
Yeah.
soak the greens and get that green,
Yeah.
I guess the chlorophyll out of it. And they said it would take down, that's what the dietitian, so I was gonna ask you, working with dietitians also, because we didn't know that that was a problem until it was a problem. And then take some of that chlorophyll out, and then she could eat it the day before, and then that would flush out whatever.
I mean, in her case, it was probably helpful, but I don't think, in the general population, I don't think soaking that chlorophyll off is gonna help, because that's the natural process of, or contents of green leafy vegetables are necessary. So I will say this, I will say it wasn't a problem until it was a problem. So I will reverse that, right? So I believe the diabetes and the heart failure and the medications that resulted in that caused her to have restrictions, right? So now we gotta work within your restrictions. But you starting off, I like greens, I like tomatoes, I like onions. You starting off with that, there's no problem with that. But
Exactly.
once you end up on dialysis and
It's a
heart
problem.
failure.
But then the numbers, and it was a big factor, because the numbers changed drastically once we started soaking them.
Yeah.
So it made a tremendous difference, and probably, staved off death for a while. And so, there are those things that, I don't know, do we need to talk to dietitians?
Yes,
Yeah.
kidney failure, heart failure, those are very specific situations in which you have to have a very special diet.
Right.
You can't have protein, you got certain amount of protein, you have kidney failure. Like you just can't. You can't have protein, can't have extra potassium. That's the whole reason for dialysis, is because your body is not working to eliminate what you don't need. right? Your body's not working to eliminate the potassium. So I gotta put you on dialysis so we can help you eliminate potassium. So now don't go have dialysis today and eat a whole bunch of potassium tomorrow because your dialysis ain't till 2 days from now. You know,
So
so
now
that's
that
a
we
whole.
learned it the hard way,
Yeah.
when the crisis emerged and they discovered that was the situation. So I don't think that people give enough credibility to the dietitians or see them as much as they should. That's important.
That's
Yeah.
true. That's true.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, that is absolutely true, and I think Dr. Hines is right. It's not a problem till it's a problem. So eating those things before you get to end-stage renal disease and dialysis is perfect. It's after you get there that now you have to be a little bit more mindful, because remember, dialysis means my kidneys are not working, so this is what this machine is doing for me. And then, of course, one of the biggest things with dialysis or kidney issues is maintaining your sort of acid levels of potassium. And so that's what that artificial kidney is doing for you. So, you know, you have to be even more mindful.
Yeah, if you come in the ER or come out of the ER and I ask you what's wrong, they say my potassium is high, I'm automatically thinking something wrong with your kidney.
Right.
I'm automatically thinking that without knowing your history.
Yeah.
So, because now I know your kidney is not eliminating potassium.
And you just have to be mindful. The good thing is, Pentecostal Churches of the Apostolic Faith Incorporated, we do have a, in Evangelist Blanche, she doesn't like me to call her a dietitian, she doesn't like to call me a nutritionist, because in that area, she hasn't gotten her specific certification, but that is exactly what she is. And she is really, really good at it. So we do have those things for us, those nutritional support for us as well. But nutrition is very important. And so even before you get to, what they're saying is, the point is, before you get to heart disease and diabetes and stroke, let's do this first. And it prevents getting there. It helps to keep you from getting there, which is so, so important. It's important to do it, but where does it start? With our children. So oftentimes what we often make the mistake of is we eat a different diet than what our children eat. So we may be on this great Mediterranean diet, and then we say to our kids, nah, you go have McDonald's. No. We do everything essentially the same. When my son, take for example, I'm gonna tell my husband too, when my son was vegetarian, we all, we didn't take away all our meat, but guess what? We learned to cook hearty vegetarian meals. And as much as it hurt his heart, the bishop had to eat vegetarian just like everybody else. And he had to learn to appreciate it and like it. And I think that's what we have to learn to do. But it's done, do it with your children. Start early, start introducing them to blueberries and strawberries, and introducing them to quinoa and avocados, and making different dishes with those things, so it will sort of whet their appetite for it, and not, nachos and what's the thing, flaming hot. Oh my God, a flaming hot, it's gonna kill you inside, y'all. And so starting them early is the key. It is so key to do that. But what if you're already past that stage and now you got health conditions, and so you probably did it.
Yeah.
You just flaming hot. That which will melt you down in no time. I can't, I just kind of, my eyes just start watering. But anyway, you're starting to have health conditions. You're in your 30s. You're in your 40s, you're in your 50s, you're even younger nowadays because of. Then you gotta kind of curb things to get you back on track.
Yeah, you are what you eat, but I wouldn't for that age group, I wouldn't blast the system. I would make slow changes that are doable. Yeah. Because if I put you on a crash diet, you're gonna do good.
Yeah.
Probably 30 days. And then when you fall off, you won't be
it's over.
So that to get you to a steady state where you're not doing this with your weight and you're not doing this with your diet, one goal at a time.
So moderation.
Slow. Yeah. Let's just work on your portions. Let's just work on your portions for 30 days. Okay. Now, can I
or something even simpler? That's good.
Yeah.
No fast food. Let's just try that.
Yeah.
Do something real simple. One thing at a time, so that you slide into not a diet but a lifestyle.
Yeah.
That's.
But the sooner you reverse that,
yeah.
The
and
better
in the
you are.
meantime, you're not aggravating anything that's triggering.
And you can't fix a lot of this if you make those adjustments.
Absolutely.
This is really good. And so that be open part, right? And it took time to get there. It's gonna take time to come out of it. And like Dr. Hines said, if you fall, you tend to fall really hard when you do, because you will wake up and miss.
I get the same person.
Right, you miss what you didn't have, right? And so this is a mindset shift. And I just wanna put it up here as a way to say goodbye.
So long, goodbye.
So long, bye-bye.
So long, bye-bye.
But
And y'all-
before you go, let me get a piece.
Or you rehab it.
You rehab,
Yeah,
there you
that's
go.
good.
Or you rehab it. And what I find, oh Lord, let me take it. Okay, so
No,
what I
you're
find is there is always a way to turn this into something that may not be the same, but it is exceptionally close. So we switched to trying a little almond flour
Yes.
and experimenting with almond flour. We use,
Still make
you know, some
And
swerve.
you can air fry your
We-
chicken.
We switched
fry,
to
yeah.
swerve
You
and
can
then
do what?
Himalayan stuff. Can we,
Yeah.
let's rehab
Let's
this.
reverse it.
Okay,
Let's rehab it.
Okay,
Okay,
rehab
chicken.
Well,
Let's
stop.
rehab
I can
it.
still serve.
Okay, I got, hold on.
Let me tell you, I want y'all to rehab that fried chicken, because I love it.
Okay, okay,
I always backslide at KFC.
No.
Rehab the
Air
chicken.
fry and it's crunchy.
Air fry.
I need the crunch.
Air
I got
fryer.
it.
Oh, yeah. And let me just tell you, the air fryer will do it. And let me just tell you, I have never in my life heard of chicken skins, right? So I took the skin off of my chicken thigh and I stuck it in the air fryer and I made the most crispy, delicious little snackety snack I have ever heard in my life. The air fryer will take those chicken, and I didn't even put any crusting on it. Now, if you want a little crust on it, you can actually use a combination of, now I don't use cornstarch. Cornstarch makes things crunchy. I use arrowroot, same principle. But you can take a little almond flour if you like to. You can season it up anyhow you want to and put a little almond flour if you want a little crispiness, you know, because you got to have that crunch and then stick it in your eye. Yes, they do.
Yes.
But I just use a little arrowroot or a little bit of cornstarch and almond flour, and it gives you that. And it's really in the season. Now, I don't even like the breading on mine, so I just stick it in my air fryer with nothing on it, and it's crunchy, crispy, and delicious. And remember what we're talking about. All I want to do is, it ain't gonna be the same as what maybe my grandma. No, my mom. Best fried chicken fried in the world.
Really?
It ain't hers, but guess what? It is enough. It is enough to satisfy that area in my brain that said I need some fried
That's
chicken.
exactly what I'm talking about. I just that pleasure.
Yeah.
Just
Right.
the pleasure of the
Yeah.
crunch and the flavor.
Switch to dark chocolate.
Oh.
Now, I love chocolate.
It's good.
But, and I'm gonna tell you, no, once you get used to it, it
No,
becomes
it
less
is
and less.
It is.
And so what you have to learn to do is rehab these things.
And it's so rich that you don't need a whole bunch.
So I'm gonna tell you what has happened to me. I didn't get breakfast, I went to the little shop up here to get something to drink. Everything in there explodes my taste buds because everything is too sweet. Because everything now is either a dark chocolate, you know, I like it 85, you know, I like it bitter now, but because you change, you rehab your brain and you change it, and yet get you an air fryer.
Really?
Get you an air fryer.
It's an investment in yourself.
And I'm gonna tell you, what you can find, French fries.
Yes.
The best fries I have ever put in my mouth. And what I do is, I make sweet potato fries. And sometimes if I still want the white ones, I'll add them in there, but just a few. And I make the sweet potato fries. I put a little olive oil on them. I toss them with some smoked paprika, a little Himalayan salt. I like things spicy, so I put a little sriracha on it, toss it in that olive oil, put it in that air fry, just as crispy
Really?
as when
Yes, I love it. And I don't even have to use my oven if I'm using the air fryer. And then even your roasted vegetables,
Yes.
that's a snack for me now. You know, I'll just keep some cut up in the refrigerator. So-
What happens is when you rehab, remember what we're talking about, empowered health. It is all about empowered health. And empowered health means a shift in your way of thinking about these things. There is a way to achieve something. It ain't gonna be like my mama's,
Right.
it ain't, but it's gonna be close enough to trick my brain that I have had
You still feel
something
pleasure.
and I feel
Yeah.
satisfied.
Yeah.
So what about that bag of Lay's potato chips? That's my thing.
Bake,
That's,
Get some baked ones.
you can do baked chips, you can do
or
baked.
switch, or right, the
I got
veggie
a chip
sticks.
thing too.
The veggie sticks
But
are
it's
good,
about
and I'll
the
tell you
crunch.
something else, those green pea snaps, hard snaps,
Oh,
delicious. They taste like Cheetos.
What are they?
Green beans?
Yes, they're
Are
green
you
peas.
serious?
Taste like Cheetos to me, they got the same, I trick myself all the string.
What are they called?
They are
I've seen them.
harvest snaps. They're called harvest snaps, but they're made out of dried green peas. And so they have all kinds of mixtures to it. Really, the way I do it is the less ingredients, the better. So my snack for chips, I did, what we did in my house was we switched to just plain tortillas, right? And no dory, all I want in it is corn and a little sea salt. And then what we do is make salsa. So during COVID, we made a little garden. It was just a project me and my daughter did, but it was so much
I saw that.
that it was great. So we made salsa. So instead of having the chips, because you like the chips because they got all that flavor and stuff from, we just switched to plain tortillas, and then we make our own hummus, which is just, or chickpeas, grind them down, put a little olive oil, a little whatever pepper season you want in there, and grind them down, or salsa, my favorite. And literally, you have to kind of stop yourself. And it is the crunch that you need. And if making it is too much, then you switch to the veggie sticks or the harvest pea snaps. They're delicious. And they will.
My weakness is when you're out, when you're not at home and you don't have time.
You always have to
find
prepare.
those, you prepare and you have to find those alternatives.
So what about the sweet tooth? Now, I've calmed down a whole lot since I've changed my diet, but what about the sweet tooth? And, I used to love cakes, pies, cookies, all that. I'm away from it now, but if I, feel like I really want some sweet, how do you rehab that?
Okay,
She's
so,
talking about the cake.
yeah, so, okay, you want to rehab cake, or do you want anything? Because I can get what you want.
Okay, you
so-
already did the chicken, you said Himalayan salt?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Himalayan
you did
salt.
that one.
Yeah.
You did
So
the
you
chips.
talked about the chips.
So,
Oh, so you're still in the basket? You
So
talking
no,
about
I'm
how
not
many of
asking,
the
I'm talking
chips?
about that.
Oh, the cake, okay, she's talking about the cake.
you can switch it. All you have to do is look up keto-based desserts, and you will find that every last one of those things has some kind of. My favorite is the little fat bombs, which are like, they have a lot of cream cheese in them, which is a little bit too much. There's also something that you can substitute to make Reese's peanut butter cups, and all it takes is melted coconut oil, a little bit of honey, and some chocolate, unsweetened cocoa powder. Put them in like little cups. You melt it all down, put it in little cups, and I'll make a big batch of them so that every time I want something sweet, I just pop one of those. And then I'm really getting fancy. I put a little dollop of peanut butter in the middle of it, and then it makes a Reese's peanut butter cup.
What are your cookbooks, Sister Joy?
This is what I'm gonna
So what we're gonna do, So what we're gonna do at one of our next meetings is we're gonna do a recipe rehab as one of our sessions. And we're gonna do
Already got the wisdom.
Yeah. So we're going to do it. And it's a daily struggle. I mean, y'all look at me, I'm juicy, right? I'm fluffy. And it's a daily struggle. It's a daily
So God
struggle.
has given you
But-
solution.
Yes.
And this is
Yes.
the thing.
Yes.
I mean, all the things you're saying,
Like, oh,
they sound so satisfying, and it sounds like it's a pleasure to actually make.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, when I first made salsa, and I make it now, I do not even, when we ate salsa before we started this, I never buy it, nobody in my house, I make my own mayonnaise now, because I didn't want the sugar in the mayonnaise, because we took out, I want sugar, pretty much sugar is the demon.
Right, it is.
It's the devil,
It is.
it's the devil. And so I took it out, so I just figured out how to make it. Mayonnaise is just eggs, olive, for me, eggs, oil, some kind of citrus, and a little bit of salt, and put it in a blender. That's it. My other go-to for the sugar is just like I said, I will slice, I get the ripe bananas. I go to the Kroger, they know me. Hey, Miss Pulliam, what you want? They over there, they cheaper. The overripe bananas, I take them home, I slice them, I put them in the freezer, and then I pop them out and put them in the blender, put almond milk in, a little dollop of peanut butter, and it feels like I'm having a shake. Which is why my little drink then just, I'm like, oh my God, my head is swimming from this thing, it's so sweet. But that's how you rehab your sugar fix. But yeah, it's lots of ways to do it. It's just, and I'm not somebody, I gotta be prepared. I gotta always have my nuts. Yeah, I gotta.
Yeah, why you say not to cook now?
This time
Because
next year,
my
I have to
mom
taste
like
it. This time next year.
I don't know. What's interesting is I'm not the cook of my family, so it's almost like, yeah, I'm not. So I'm like, yeah, I'll tell you, I take everybody ideas and act like it's mine. Like, she know I'm telling. Listen, she has so many good ideas. I take them like they mine. They roll off my tongue so hot. And then everybody like, no, we're great. I knew to pull you on. And then I said, good. She said, okay.
Speaking into what you just did, put it in an audio. And somebody just type
Right, we're going to strategy, right? And these are the things that we're.
I don't know, I wasn't paying attention, y'all talking so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, you sit down before I go look at the fried chicken.
Can I say this? I think so. I think so, 3. When you invest in yourself like this, so you get your air fryers, you get your blenders and your good set of knives, it will move you into other things because now you're realizing the benefit to the point where I make my own deodorant, right? And my own hair products, right? So and then you start thinking, well, I don't want that in or on me. I don't want all of that prepackaged stuff in or on me, and you begin to ingest and apply that to your own self. So it's a lot, it's the gateway. So this right here is the gateway to an investment in yourself so that really ultimately you're all that you can be, pulling from the earth that God has created to live your best life, and it's empowering. Yes, it is. And you'll have joy in it, like you'll find preparing those meals are relaxing, and then when you taste of it, you're like, wow. I did that, and your creative juices starts to flow too.
Exactly.
And you start mixing, matching different things. And you're just like, whoa, I never thought this would taste this way or that I would enjoy it.
Or you start watching that Food Network, and then every city you go to, you try to find a farmer's market instead of down at the mall. I mean, that's me. It's the freshness that you enjoy. So we're gonna
Yeah, are there any
these
questions
things.
online? Because we had a.
No, I didn't see any.
I don't think so.
I
I think we got 5 minutes and then.
Oh, I'm interrupted these. So heart disease is any disease of the heart. The most common one is coronary artery disease. But there could also be infection, inflammation, there could be enlargement of the heart. The point of this slide is to let you know that one person dies every 34 seconds in the US from cardiovascular disease, which is a form of heart disease. What we don't realize, I brought this out because we were so panicky about COVID when for years and even still now past COVID, this is the #1 leading cause of death, still. So if you care, you want to heal your heart, really. And we don't want to be freaking out as much about COVID as we still heart disease. Blacks are 30% more likely to die from heart disease than our white counterparts, 30% more likely. So there's the disparity, right? And so why is that? Because we cooked our greens this way, and we all we had was what we had, so we had to make do, and we never grew from that mentality, right? But the dietary modifications, the other thing I wanted to mention, when we say moderate exercise, I mean move, like First Lady of Obama. She was all about the movement, like movement. She created a move. So 30 minutes of anything that moves your body and races your heart at least 5 days a week is what we mean by that. But see, you get the benefit. 80% decreased risk is a huge benefit.
Right. Wow.
It's a huge benefit. So some of us just don't move enough. Sedentary lifestyle. Stroke, we talk about heart attack. A stroke is similar to a brain attack. You can bleed or you cannot have enough blood. So we should be teaching, how do you identify a stroke? Ask somebody to smile. If the smile is asymmetrical, the face is asymmetrical, you want to move right away. You want to make a call. The arms, if you ask them to lift their arms and only one comes up, their speech. If you ask them to repeat after me and their speech is slurred or they're somehow confused, time is of the essence. I think they said, well, really, you want to get somebody help within 3 to 5 minutes to reverse some of this. But what's concerning is Black people, this is what we're saying, we're empowering you with this knowledge, have a 2.4 fold increase in stroke incidence compared to whites. Why is this? You know, and it's because of everything we said before.
I do have a question.
Yes.
I think it's critical before we go. There is now some reports that certain medications are responsible for early onset of Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
Dementia.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, statins I think have been on the radar right now, but I will say this. I will say Alzheimer's and dementia could also be a blood flow issue. I would venture to say this, and I might step on some toes. Some of the research as far as keeping the blood pressure controlled so tightly and the blood sugar is controlled so tightly in elderly are now doing them a disservice. Because there's a natural process, not just the plaques hardening in the arteries, but there's a natural process of stiffening. There's a natural process. So I expect your blood pressure to be a little higher. And I don't want to so tightly control your sugars that your brain can't function, right? I don't want you dropping into the 50s and 60s. Because now I am creating confusion, and too many episodes of that is going to lead to a cognitive decline over time. So that's how I'll touch on that. But there are some studies about statins there. If you have a good physician,
Statins.
cholesterol medicine,
Certain
cholesterol. I will say this though, if you want to control cholesterol naturally, green leafy vegetables is the best thing. So there are sterols and plant-based products that naturally lower your cholesterol.
I think a lot of people want to hear that because there's so much of that.
Yeah, it is.
Dementia out there.
It
But I
is.
think you have to do risk benefit, you know, everything has a risk and a benefit. If the risk outweighs the benefit, you don't take it. If the benefit outweighs the risk, because everything that we give, there is a benefit, there is a risk that you might get this or that, and it's weighing that risk.
Well, like, okay, so the reason I say that, I had a patient, 80 something, maybe 70, I don't know. All of a sudden passing out. So everybody's freaking out. Is it her hurt? She having like heart attacks. Is she having many strokes? Something's wrong, Dr. Hines. I said, bring her in and bring her medication. You still on 3 or 4 blood pressure medications and we corrected that. She stopped calling. So now I don't need you to go to a cardiologist and have this brain scan and have this. It was your medication. We're controlling, we're treating a number, we're not treating the patient. Right? So that's why I say
The
that.
reason I ask is because that's most of my patients.
Yeah.
Alzheimer's, dementia, and then people are asking questions, what causes it? How do you prevent it, or how do you slow it down?
Yeah, it's gonna be, you have to have brain foods, you have to have brain activity too.
Brain
You have to,
foods.
you have to encourage. So you want, good healthy fats are gonna be brain foods, good healthy fats. Your avocados, she mentioned olive oil several times. Because what it does is it reinforces the myelination of your brain cells, right, in your brain. So good healthy fats. Most of our elderly, we sit in a corner, especially if we're caregivers, sit in the corner, be quiet. We back to the treatment like kids. Watch this show. We're not stimulating them. Go play a card game, a board game with them.
So the
Give them
activities.
the activity is very important.
Stay crossword puzzles.
Crossword puzzles. And we get frustrated because they want to tell you the same story 10 times. Let it be Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
Let them tell the story because it stimulates something.
Okay, one of my patients said, oh, I was out biking this morning, so we gotta do that together. She hasn't seen a bike in years, so I love her.
But yeah, so
This is good
all of
stuff.
that is really important. Diabetes, we talked about, we should be informed about the difference between type 1, type 2. Type 1, you can't really do anything about. That's the genetic one. You kind of almost born with the inability to process sugar, pretty much. That's what type 1 is. So most of us past our 20s, most of us, with the problem with being overweight or obesity is going to be a type 2. It's going to be, you are what you eat type of thing. You ate yourself into a frenzy and then your body stops. It just stops processing sugar as well.
So is that the pancreas?
It is.
Insufficient. So is there, something that leads from the diabetes into the pancreatic cancer?
Oh, that's good. That's good. I would say there is a connection. Because it's chronic inflammation, I'm sorry, are we doing? I would say from chronic inflammation, I wouldn't say it's a direct link, but chronic inflammation can cause a cancer in any part of the body. Yeah, really.
Okay, so they have told me that it's time for us to make sure you pull out your phones and do your surveys, so that we can have the information too. So you pull it out, if you have the app, hit the survey, do it, make sure you give them an A, plus, 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 so that we can, make sure that we get these over and over again.
Do you want to get it now?
Yeah, we can, yeah, so the bottom line is as African Americans in the faith-based community at a disadvantage because of lack of knowledge, and some of the faith-based barriers, and we want to encourage, us to remember that it is His will that we prosper and be in good health, even as our soul prospers. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you all.
I'm just looking for the survey.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going into the class now, Howard? Okay.
All right, did you, all right, I'm gonna stop.
Yeah. We're done.